also very fortunate here today to have Genevieve Dufort be here and share her stories. She's a cancer survivor and also a model and a great speaker. I've heard her speak before. So if you want to come up here and share your stories, I do have your picture, so I'm going to look for it.
Hi, so I'm Genevieve. It's interesting coming into a Interesting coming into a place like this and seeing how so many other people are affected by, what type of, what everybody needs, which is blood. In my case, I am now 28 years old. I was diagnosed with AML leukemia when I was 15. I was an athlete, long blonde hair, didn't have a care in the world, stayed up till all hours of the night, told my mom I wasn't feeling very good. She said, it's probably because you haven't slept. Next day, ended up in the middle of the night passing out, waking up on the floor, was brought to the hospital and diagnosed with AML leukemia. That's called acute myeloid leukemia. At the end of the day, it's a blood cancer, and because it's a blood cancer, that means I need a lot of it as soon as they get all of my bad blood out of my body. Went through pretty rigorous, chemotherapy. I was lucky enough, I have one sibling, that was my brother, and he tested positive as a perfect match for me for bone marrow. For some of you that don't really know the statistics, it's only 25% per sibling, and it's usually the odd sibling that matches. Funny story when you start to look back was my mom lost a child in between my brother and I, and almost brought her to full term, 8 months. So it's funny how life happens. You never know, why this happened, and little did we know, a year later my brother was conceived and then he was a perfect match, and it seems to be because he was the third child. So, life continues on, and I brought a picture, and the only reason I bring pictures, well, I don't really care if I didn't have hair. Some people do. Me, I didn't. I just think that pictures are a big way to show, because when people look at me, they would never in a million years think I had been sick, let alone twice. So my life carried on until I was 23 years old, and out of the blue, again, I was snowboarding just like any other young person. I ended up hitting my head, and I went to the hospital just to double check what was going on, and it ended up that I was full-blown leukemia all over again. Exact same type. So now I'm in university. I've finished some of my modeling, but started to take the next chapter on my life. And this is the time where we're 23, we're going out, we have boyfriends, we're looking at settling down, all of this. And wham, my mom always says, you never know what's gonna happen, or you never. What's your thing that you say, by the way? I always screw it up, but it's really good. When you're planning, what is it?
Definition of life is what takes place when you're planning something else.
Exactly. And that's what I thought was about to happen, and then what did happen are two separate things. Anyhow, this is a picture of me when I lost my hair. This was taken by my boyfriend, who actually got into photography, and with me modeling, it was just a way to be able to kind of express myself still, and maybe showing a different side of me. I didn't have, the long blonde hair, and, it was just me in, I guess, the rawest form. This being said, I ended up, like I said, relapsing, and this time I got treated at VGH, so I've used a lot of your taxpayers' money, I'm not going to lie. But when I was younger, I was treated at Children's, which is a completely different, facility. It's young and it's bright and the doors are open and we have trees on the walls, and then you're treated at VGH and it's quite white and stark, private and that type of stuff. And I ended up doing chemotherapy and then a full bone marrow transplant from my little brother, who's the tall guy over here. And so what you're thinking is going to be happening at 23, 24 years old ended up turning completely around. But it's funny because whenever I hear of, something going on, or, how, one simple blood transfusion can affect the lives of 3 people, when you read these things, for some of you who have, donated blood, or if you can't, like for me, I can't. So if you, tell somebody else who can, that makes just as much of an impact. And it's unbelievable if you think of how many people wanted to have the Olympics here, and then the domino effect, and how many people are now talking about it. I don't think we can go an hour without somebody talking about the Olympic. Well, imagine that happening with blood donation. You know, it's a tipping point, and when you affect one person, you can tell somebody else. You never know what experience that person's going to have, you know, that day or the next day. And when you look at this, and you look at all the people and whose families are affected, I mean, even myself now, my brother's affected, so I'm sure whoever he chooses to marry is going to be affected, and they're going to tell their kids, and that generation is going to carry on. And one of the things that's probably really amazing about this is I have really good core group of friends, and I always say my go-to, one of my best friends is Michelle, and she's a nurse, so it's funny, if I ever have something that goes wrong, Michelle's the first one to hear about it. And now that she's heard about it, I know that, you know, she talks to her patients. Oh, I have a friend that's happened. And then that person has a friend that's happened. And so my main reasoning for coming here and speaking to you is that even though you have maybe never given blood, or you have affected 14 people's lives. And in a sense, you've really affected 28. And you know, you double that again, you're at, you know, 56 people by just doing one donation. So, you know, from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of the heart of my family and my friends, you know, I'd like to thank you for even being a part of this, because the fact that you just came out doesn't matter if you donate. It just means that these people's lives may affect you in one way or another. You'll tell somebody else, and you'll tell somebody else, and then that's going to be what's going to happen for the rest of our lives. So thank you very much for having me, and I hope that you all tell somebody about this amazing exhibit, as this is going to be amazing for the next week. So thank you.